He was the nicest guy in town.
He was about the most popular man in Carthage.
Real people person. Just made you feel real good about yourself.
It's like he had cast a spell over the entire area.
Room service.
And she was just a mean, old widow.
She used to tear up my toys. She pulled the heads off my dolls.
Well, there's some goodness in there, too.
Somewhere along the way, it was just Bernie. He was her servant.
She was demanding,
You should have been here hours ago.
condescending.
All I want is for you to be a man for once in your life.
There are people in town, honey, that would have shot her for $5.
Everybody's describing Bernie T as an angel.
The nicest fella I've ever met.
He didn't do it.
He's an angel, all right. An angel of death.
And that's a clip from the movie Bernie. Jack Black is portraying the real-life and quite likable murderer. That's Bernie Tiede. He was sentenced to a life sentence in prison for allegedly killing, and it's not allegedly because he killed her elderly companion and sticking her, wait for this, her body in a freezer after he killed her. But yesterday he was set free after a judge recommended that his prison term be reduced. Let's take a look back at the trial.
It wasn't hard for the jury to find Bernie Tiede guilty of murder. He admits shooting 81-year-old Marjorie Nugent 4 times in the back, stuffing her body in this freezer under frozen food, and taping the lid shut. When the verdict was read, Tiede showed no emotion in the courtroom or when he was let out in handcuffs. Now the penalty phase begins. The jury of 7 women, 5 men will hear witnesses attest to Tiede's character and that of Nugent's.
And there have been lots of people kind of perpetuating how mean she was, and she wasn't at all. She was loving and caring. And I think that's hard. It's hard for me to hear.
Attorney Eric Albritton says their strategy is to show Tiede as the man he is.
This is something that was entirely out of character for Mr. Tiede, that he's been a peaceful, law-abiding person for his entire 40 years. He's a good man, a caring man, and a generous man.
And a man who defense attorneys say snapped after being driven over the edge by his victim, who had become too possessive and demanding.
And today, Bernie Tiede is out of jail. His prosecuting attorney agreed to let him out of that life sentence we told you about. Here's what happened in court just yesterday.
I now feel that a life sentence is an inappropriate sentence for Mr. Tiede.
It seems as though that emotion built up over time, and in my opinion, that was a non-premeditated act.
If that evidence had been presented to the jury, would it have been evidence that could have led to a charge of a felony of the second degree instead of 5 to 99 life?
As I understand the law, yes, it would have. So what he did was he put the body in a place where it could be preserved, and then went on with his life as best he could, without showing any emotion associated with that.
So he only spent 15 years in prison for the crime. That's murder. Sticking someone in the freezer thereafter. My dream team is here. They join me, of course, Janet Johnson and LaTonya Hines. And we also have on the phone psychiatrist Dr. Charles Sophie. Doctor, let me start with you. Just taking us through the psychological issues involved here. And apparently the reduction of the sentence, it came about because of issues with his childhood. There was some sexual abuse that he endured as a child. And in addition to that, apparently he was gay, and he was hiding it. And so could you just tell us, doctor, from your perspective, what, if any, effect does that have on someone's mental state? That's what we lawyers like to talk about when we're talking about criminal crimes.
Well, thank you. I think it's important to know that there are many people who have suffered sexual abuse, physical abuse, have issues with grappling and accepting their sexuality. They're really not used as excuses or ways to get out of ownership of behavior that is egregious. So I'm not sure what impact it may have had on him, but I am more concerned, did he get treatment while he's been in jail in order for him to make a smoother transition and integration back into society, or is he going to find himself in more trouble?
That's a great point, Doc. And I think, you know, even before getting to the out of jail, I mean, just the concern about why the heck he did get out, and the Dream Team's going to weigh in on that in a minute. But I want to take you through this. He says he regrets what he did every day. Take a look at the previous interview that was done here.
I did something horrible, and I regret that every day for the rest of my life. And if they gave me 3,000 years in here, they could never take that away from me. So I needed to do some time. There are people in here that have created and committed much more heinous crimes than I could even imagine. I'm going to ask for a time cut, I hope, you know, one of these days when I've got 15 years under my belt. You know, I mean, I'm looking now, I want to go home.
Now, Janet, how many times do your clients tell you, I want to go home? Right?
Well, yeah, if they got prison. Of course, if I represent them,
they're not going to be in prison, right?
You know, what was a trigger to me, and I think, you know, it's great. If there's mitigation and it didn't come out, it's great that they reconsidered it. But when he said there are people in here who did much worse things than I did, who are those people? Because it doesn't get much worse than this. So I hope he owns the atrocity that he committed. And, you know, if he's treated specially because a movie was made, I guess that's great for him. I hope everybody gets that kind of mitigation.
And will they, though, LaTonya? I mean, listen, because there's a movie made, he's meant to be, and he's portrayed as this likable person. He gets out of jail after 15 years, he kills her, sticks her in a freezer, and spends her money.
No, wait,
really?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, speaking as a prosecutor and looking at this case, it seemed more like a Norman Bates type of situation. They said that it was a very abusive relationship he had with this caretaker, in addition with the issues that he had with sexual abuse and things like that. So, yeah, that might be a mitigation as to this was a freak accident that occurred, but still, in just watching him, he doesn't need to be released out into just the general population without some type of control setting or something like that.
Absolutely. And Dr. Sophie, if we still have you, what kind of treatment would it take for him to be reintegrated into society safely?
Well, hopefully they were doing some on the inside without knowing he was going to be coming out, because that's what should be done. And then seeing and assessing him and putting him in a lower level of restriction to see how he functions. I mean, it's not fair to him either, because you're going to put him into a place where he may be easily distracted and tempted. And does he have those coping skills is what has to be assessed. And if he doesn't, he needs them before he's integrated.
Exactly. Dr. Sophie, thank you so much.